In today's video, I want to talk about Karim Adeyemi and what he possibly brings to Chelsea, why this could be a good signing, some of the issues with it, but really why this is a steal for Chelsea because this player with such a young age has a lot of capability. Now, let's look at some of his stats, though, that we've seen before in the Bundesliga. Now, if you haven't looked at SofaScore with this player, 22 years of age. So again, ready, a young player, does fit the profile for Chelsea and what we've been looking for the last couple seasons with the new board, the new owners. They're looking for a lot of younger players. He is left-footed again, which again, who knows why we keep picking up left-footed players. I think we have a whole front line now of left-footed players. We may have the most in any squad. That being said, though, this player has the capability of being very lethal, not only on the left side, as we're seeing here, he can play as a striker, but I would argue he's also very good on the right side. If you're looking at his heat map, this man can actually play on either side. He does drop back to play defensive-wise, which is one of the key attributes that I think a lot of people are not going to realize how good of a player this is. Now, you're probably wondering, why would we want to pick up this player of all the other wingers we have? We have Mudryk on that left side. We have Sterling on the right side. We have Mudryk. We have Cole Palmer. And the list goes on and on because Nico Jackson can play on that left side and Cuckoo. So we have multiple players that can play these positions. The fact is that, again, this guy going for about 25 million right now seems like a steal for any type of player, especially a 20-year-old who was just in the Champions League final, who has a lot of capabilities. Not only, again, is he good at dropping back playing defensively, but he is one of the quickest players in the entire league itself. I want to say he was the fastest player in the Bundesliga, and there are some quick players in that league. So that by itself is something that I don't think a lot of people are realizing with how good of a player he actually is. Now, that being said, he also does have the capability of dribbling very well. His carries are one of the best, which again, this is something that Chelsea are going to be looking into bringing into the club. And I think there's a main reason for this. Now, Maresca did some starting under Pep Guardiola. I'm not going to say he's exactly like Doku at Manchester City, but I want to say they have very similar comparisons. And we all know how Pep Guardiola has used Doku to try to break some down low blocks. And I think this is another player that can possibly do that for Chelsea because last season when we played against the low block, we really struggled. And I think Adeyemi has the capability with his dribbling, with his pace in the tight areas that he can weave through players, gives us that capability, which does allow us to break down a lot of other teams because, yes, we do understand Maresca wants to play a lot more passing the ball around, but when we're looking at ways to break down teams that really we struggled with last season, there weren't too many options besides Cole Palmer, which, like I mentioned before, Cole Palmer, yes, can work great on that right side, but we were so heavy on that right side that teams knew exactly what we were going to do, and we couldn't do much on that left side. Now, Dewsbury Hall does bring us some of that effort from the right side to the left side, so again, that does help out, but Adeyemi is another player that can definitely do that for us. I think he does have the capability of being one of the better players for us, and like I said, when you're looking at some of his attributes, now I'm not going to say these are 100% accurate because when you watch him in the Bundesliga, he was very creative. I think a 61 is a bit harsh for this player because he's able to do some low-driven crosses, which maybe Dortmund weren't able to finish a lot of those last season, but he does have the capability of whipping in a ball from the left side, from the right side, which again can be very lethal depending on who's attacking forward because if we can score some of these crosses, it will make a huge difference for Chelsea and even Maresca's tactics because, like I said, if he's able to break down some of these teams fairly quickly, he then can impose his tactics like Pep Guardiola and really dictate the game with possession, passing the ball, and really pick apart a lot of these other teams, like I said, that sit back in a low block. And we all do know how really the Premier League is more of a low block situation this last couple of seasons, especially with Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta, and a lot of the other teams in the top six. So like I said, you have to have different key factors with your squad that are capable of breaking these things down. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of players in this position. So that is one of the issues that we're going to have to be considering and looking at because Raheem Sterling is on high wages. Now, there are talks about him possibly going to Saudi Arabia League. This is still up in the air. He's mentioned before he does not want to go to that league. But if the offer comes in right, possibly. But I do understand for a player not to want to go there. We've seen some players not do very well there, struggle, and also not like the atmosphere, Jordan Henderson being one of those players. But that being said, if we do keep all these players, we were going to have to find room for all these players. And we had the issue a couple seasons ago with Graham Potter, with Thomas Tuchel, with a bloated squad. And if we keep bringing a lot of these other players in, it's going to be very difficult for us to, again, work out some of these players, but also keep the momentum going with our starting 11. That was one of our issues last season. We had so many players mix and matching throughout the season that I don't think we really ever got any team chemistry. Yes, there was injuries, there was suspensions, there was other things going on, but really that was one of our key issues. And Maresca really does like to pick his starting 11 and stick with them for the most part, and maybe pick and choose a few different players to swap out every now and then depending on which game we're playing and who we're playing against. But overall, he does have his tactics and how he wants to break down teams. And I think Karim Adeyemi from Bay has the capabilities of being one of the greater players. He does have a link to Arsenal. I think there's a few other teams that are looking at him as well, which does not surprise me for 25 million, especially in the market in the last couple of seasons for a guy who's just in the Champions League final. This seems fairly reasonable, and Chelsea are looking at possibly doing a 5-year contract for him. So it's roughly 5 million each and every year. I think that's pretty good market value for him. Now, again, we have still the possibility he does not work out for us. We've had some players come from the Bundesliga, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, just to name the last few players that have struggled at this club. But there is a possibility that he could be one of these players that does break out and really helps us control a lot of the games, create more on that left side, and really allow us to play from the right and left. And again, does have the capability of beating players with his pace. And therefore, again, we do have a lot of breakaways on just some counterattacks, which Chelsea definitely needed to have last season because we didn't really have too many players that we could really rely on to release some of that pressure and play the ball out wide. Because when we have the players playing high possession like Tottenham, we need players that, again, can play the ball over the top and have our players run onto it. And Adeyemi is a guy that can do that for us. So I do want to know, though, what do you guys think about this player? Do you think he is a great signing for Chelsea if we do bring him in? And if we do bring him in, who do you think we will sell then at this squad? Because there is some rumors for some players, but really we have to obviously keep balancing the entire squad because we can't overload all our winger positions and not look at our midfield, our defense, our goalie situation, our striker. There's plenty of positions we still have to bolster up. The winging position, maybe not as much, but when it's a player like him, it's hard to pass on him, especially at 25 million. So if you did enjoy this video, I would greatly appreciate if you do hit the like button, subscribe down below. I, again, greatly appreciate that, but let's get the comments going on what you think about this player and how good of a signing this would be for Maresca and Chelsea.